Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 8th November 2016. The first article is related to the media censorship. It is not about just national security. Now, if you understand the virtue of democracy, the first virtue is to question the governmental actions. And now, this action on behalf of the people is taken up by the civil society and media. So, the civil society and media acts against any authoritative tendencies of the government, and so the governments have natural inclination to curb their freedoms. So that's why the constitutional guarantees are being provided to them. But however, no constitutional guarantee comes absolutely. There are reasonable restrictions imposed onto the same. And that is the same case with regard to freedom of speech and expression. But for the sound functioning of the democracy, we have to ensure that the freedom of speech and expression shall be as broad as possible. So it means the judiciary has to take a liberal interpretation of the freedom of speech, and it has to provide for it has to ensure that these freedoms are well protected. So now, from this perspective, I am making certain statements over here. When a law is too vague, then it leads to uncertainty and subjectiveness. So it means we have to bring in the objectivity into the law. Then we have to ensure that there has to be certainty in the terms or the words which are used. Now you all know that the Cable Television Network Regulation Act of 1995 has certain provisions which give undue advantage to the government. The first one is Section 5, which says that or it bans any program that is not with accordance with the approved guidelines. So, here what it says, what are the guidelines? A program that is based on half truths, or that is excessively criticizing, or which, I mean, these are all the terms which are not clear in their definitions. So, as I said to you, when something is not clear in their definition, and which is not providing for an objective explanation, will ultimately lead to subjective interpretations, and that leads to or violates the principle of rule of law, and it will be variedly applied to the whims and fancies of the government of the day. And the second clause is, in the name of the national security, the news channels are expected to take only the briefing given by the government. So, it means a unilateral transmission of the information is expected, and channels are not expected to ask the questions on this unilateral transmission of information in the interests of national security. So, here the burden of proof, it lies on the channels. Generally, the person who files the case, the burden of proof lies on to them in the court of law. What I mean is, for example, if NDTV was asked to prove itself that it did not do anything in the against the national security, then the burden of the proof shall lie with the government that the NDTV has did something against the national security. But however, in this particular rules and also under the Cinematography Act, the burden of proof has lies with the particular channel or movie producer. So it means entire judicial expenses need to be borne by these people. So that, I mean, it's going to financially impact the people. So that's everyone tries to toe to the line of the government. And the third thing is, you know, the judiciary is the protector of the fundamental rights. And the judicial attitude towards the cinema and towards the cable television media, that will really impact the governmental attitude. But however, if you see, the judicial attitude also appears to be conservative, and it aims to produce a holistic movie experience to the people. But however, in that case, the choice either to see a movie as holistic or sensuous has to be with the people. So the judiciary cannot do the moral policing over here. So let's take Bandit Queen. There may be certain sensuous scenes in the Bandit Queen, but its moral message is much bigger than that. So the banning on this, it has a huge impact on the freedom of speech and expression. So here what we can conclude is, the regulation to be effective, it has to be clear, objective, and unambiguous in its terms. And the second thing is, to the possible extent, every law has to be clearly defined. And judiciary has to take a proactive, protective stand towards the protection of the rights of the people. The national security cannot be a unambiguous word or else an umbrella word to cover every governmental regulation. What constitutes the national security need to be clearly stated. These are the opinions which we can observe from this article. Solutions after the smog. So what is smog? It is smoke plus fog. In the post-monsoon season, just before winter gets set, the smog phenomenon is very high in the northern states. There are multiple factors for this. The first one is the nature of urbanization. And the second one is factors which are not localized to New Delhi but coming from the neighboring states. The industrial clusters are existing in Faridabad, in Gurgaon, and all these areas. So, the pollution or lack of effective control over the pollution from these industrial clusters is one of the reasons. Thermal power stations is the second reason. Burning of the sludge from the neighboring states is the third reason. And then construction activity, lack of proper heating source, which is further leading to the burning of the firewood, etc., is the another source of pollution of particulate matter and for the formation of the smog in the city. So, in these circumstances, what are the solutions? First one is all the roads shall be paved for. And the second is the solution shall not be ad hoc, they have to be permanent. The public transport shall be made more convenient to the people. Battery operated vehicles can be brought into the city. And the pollution control measures can be made effective in the neighboring state, in the neighboring industrial clusters. And farmers shall be made accessible to the modern technology to effectively use this particular agricultural wastage. So it means if you take the concrete effective steps, this is going to help. But however, the state or interstate coordination is very critical. Who has to take up this interstate coordination? Obviously, the center. The rift between the center and the state government, it is obviously leading to a blame game. So, a political will is something which is necessary to fight this menace. Now, let's come to food and nutritional security. Now, the food security and nutrition security, these are two different terms. If you take our National Food Security Act, it is providing for rice, wheat, and millets, that is coarse cereals. All these are carbohydrates. They may provide you the protection against hunger. To what extent they provide you the nutritional security is a question. The reason is the nutritional security, it means that we shall be able to provide for vitamins, minerals, proteins, etc. So if we had the nutritional security schemes in this country, India could not have been could not have topping the list of malnourished countries in the world. And the second thing is universal PDS and targeted public distribution system. So, whenever we have the targeted public distribution system, the people who get excluded are generally the poorest of the poor. Now, if you take Antyodaya Anna Yojana, these are the poorest of the poor who shall get benefited from the food security schemes of the government. So, in this case, these people shall be given a special focus to make them inclusive of the governmental programs. And then the food security concept have to be extended to include the nutritional security too. And the next one is, let's go for this particular pollution in New Delhi. Now already we have discussed these points, but again from this article perspective, let us see them. Now, generally the governmental actions, either it is the Delhi government or union government, these are ad hoc. For example, what is the impact of odd even scheme initiated by the Delhi government? No one knows. So it has been clearly said in a study that it do not have any impact on the pollution levels, but it has some impact on the reduction of traffic on the roads. And the second thing is any action that has to be taken has to be permanent and it has to see the desirable impact on the ground level. Outcomes have to be clearly monitored in a scientific manner. So, we have to ensure that the health outcomes are bettered because of the reduction of the pollution from an action which we take. If you take the global disease burden survey, the pollution and health risks, they are not just linear. It means that substantial reduction in the pollution is necessary to bring in a greater impact on the health outcomes of the people. And the second thing is the pollution control boards at the state and union level, they suffer from a huge challenge because the skilled manpower, the capacities of these organizations are very limited. And then we have something called as technology. What do you mean by technology over here? As I said to you, the industrial clusters surrounding these particular New Delhi, these have, huge emissions. So effective implementation of the new pollution control technologies over there. And the second is transfer of the knowledge and technology to the farmers, how to convert these agricultural waste into biomass and to generation of the electricity, etc. If necessary, government can subsidize for the same, and improvement of air quality and the associated decrease in the health costs will be ultimately much higher than whatever the expenditure the government wants to incur on the pollution control. Now let's talk about the news. You know that Britain Prime Minister Miss Theresa May is visiting India. Now, what are the issues that might have come for discussion? One is Indians look for the proper visa regime from the Britain because the visa regime is getting tightened for Indian travelers, and there is disparity between India and China. The China gets the 10 years visa, multiple entry visa, which Indians are not yet eligible to. And the next is, with regard to the temporary work permits and business visas, the UK has limitations. And the Brexit also has dampened the prospects of the Indian business to settle and work from London and access the markets from European Union. So in these terms of the uncertainty, India UK wants to move forward with the free trade agreement because India EU free trade agreement did not move forward because of the multitudinal reasons, where EU is not giving the data security status to India, and at the same time EU is not providing for the free or liberal visa regime to India. So UK and India free trade agreement is generally on the faster lane, but it can only be finished after this particular Brexit procedure gets ended. And the next thing is the totalization scheme. Now let's take an UK person comes to India, he has to pay the social security. But the social security fees is totally absent or very minimal in India. But an Indian goes to UK, he has to pay the social security number, fees, etc. He hardly stays for a few months over there. But that money once he paid in UK will never be returned, that is a loss. So if totalization agreement is being made, whatever the Indian social security status which a citizen enjoys will be automatically transmitted to him in the UK, and for a UK citizen it gets transmitted in India. This is not only a problem with UK, this is also a problem with with US. So this totalization agreement has to be signed as quick as possible. And the next one is, already we discussed the visa issue. The next, with regard to the tax uncertainties, it is the concern for the UK. So what are these tax uncertainties? Especially Vodafone and Kane Energy. So there is a retrospective taxation, and UK want Indian government to address them as quick as possible. And another thing is intellectual property rights, which UK expects India to protect them. On the other hand, the Miss Theresa May has announced a frequent travelers program. Now understand, this frequent travelers program is not a liberalized visa regime, where the business people who wants to travel, they will be given an ease of access and early clearances at the airports. So it means they will be provided with certain benefits at the airports. So with regard to the free movement, and it is not about giving visas liberally and freely to the people. So these are the things with regard to Theresa May's visit we need to understand. Now it is like this: UK wants Indian money, but not Indian people. That's what I understand by their. Now let's come to the the same issues, the Britain raises the India social security taxation and tax issues. We already discussed this. Now, India, as it wants to have a terror deal or else an agreement on terrorism. Already, India and UK have the agreement on this, that is mutual legal assistance treaty. Now, according to this, India is asking for 57 fugitives, including Mr. Vijay Mallya, who is escaping from the Indian tax authorities and stationed in UK. So, and added to that, the Kerala government favors the entry of women in Sabarimala. So, already you know that the High Court of Mumbai, that is Bombay, it has given a judgment that women entry into this particular or else religious places, it shall be free and fair, because lack of entry for the women is violative of the Article 14, 19 and also Article 25. That's what is the High Court of Bombay has opined about. So, but in the case of the Sabarimala, the Kerala says that that's a unique institution, the previous Congress government. Now the left front says that women can be allowed into the Sabarimala temple. So these are the articles for discussion today. Thank you very much. I am back to Hyderabad. So see here. You today from today I will be uploading the notes www.laix.in civils prep. Now the second thing is, previously some students are following the civils prep website. Now the civils prep website has been shifted to this particular address. That is the first announcement. And the second announcement, on the civils prep website we will be posting the videos related to some other Indian Express or some other newspapers, but that program has to be scheduled and it will start very soon. So these are the small announcements for today. And then thank you very much and all the best.